The bridge of the Zorgon vessel was thick with tension. Commander Ground's tentacles twitched in frustration as he processed what his underling had just confessed. "You did what?" he growled, his gelatinous body rippling with disbelief. We kidnapped a human female," the subordinate stammered, clearly regretting every life choice that had led to this moment. "For ransom, sir." A slow, sarcastic grin spread across the commander's face. "Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant," he said dryly. Because if there's one thing this species needed right now, it was to enrage the most terrifying bipeds in the known galaxy. The rest of the crew froze. No one dared to breathe, at least not through anything resembling lungs. The subordinate's eye stalk drooped lower with every second of silence. "Well, enlighten me," Ground sneered. "Whose genius plan was this?" "We thought she was just some diplomat's daughter," the underling offered weakly. "Oh, if only," the commander replied, his voice dripping with venom. "No. You idiots managed to grab the one human. No one in their right mind would ever mess with Sarah Johnson, the only child of Admiral Bloodbath Johnson." A collective gasp echoed around the bridge. Even the ship's navigation drones, programmed to ignore everything except star coordinates and collisions, went eerily still. The name sent a chill through every non-carbon spine aboard. Bloodbath Johnson wasn't just a name. He was a legend. A nightmare that parents whispered about to scare their spawn into obedience. "He's the one who wiped out the entire Kayak's armada at Riel 4. Alone," someone murmured, more to themselves than anyone else. "He's more than that," Ground said, his voice now oddly calm. He slithered toward the main view screen and brought up a grainy image of the man in question. There, he was scarred, gray-stubbled, cybernetic implants glinting at his temples. A face like a storm. To humans, he's a war hero. To the Hive Mind Collective, he's called the Great Exterminator. To the silicon life forms of Andromeda, they don't even say his name, they just say, "Run." Before anyone could reply, alarms blared across the bridge. The crew snapped to attention. Sensors confirmed what everyone feared. A lone human vessel had just dropped out of hyperspace, heading straight for them. Ground stared at the screen, then exhaled slowly. "Well," he muttered, "I suppose we should prepare to die horribly." Someone in the back raised a tentative limb. "I don't suppose saying sorry would help." But it was too late. The ship's comms crackled. A gravelly voice sliced through the silence like a dagger. "This is Admiral Johnson. You have my daughter. I'm here to collect. Resistance is inadvisable." That was all. No threats, no dramatic monologue. Just the cold, calm voice of a man who meant every word. Ground felt his will to live slowly evaporate. "It's been a displeasure serving with you all," he said solemnly. "If anyone needs me, I'll be in the escape pod, pointlessly trying to outrun destiny." As the crew scrambled, weapons hot and escape protocols failing, the last image they saw was a middle-aged human woman calmly sipping tea in the cockpit of the approaching warship. She gave them a friendly little wave. Then everything exploded. And across the galaxy, a simple truth echoed louder than any blast. Never mess with a human, especially not their kid. Out in the black vacuum of space, silence reigned until it didn't. A single human warship dropped out of hyperspace, sending ripples through every sensor and alarm on the Zorgon vessel. Not a fleet, not a squadron, just one ship. But it wasn't the number that mattered. It was the name. "Don't tread on me." The Zorgon commander's organs nearly inverted. He knew that ship. Everyone did. It was the personal vessel of Admiral Johnson Bloodbath Johnson, the same man who had turned the Kayak's armada into a historical footnote at Riel 4. A ghost story in armor, a legend fueled by death counts and impossible victories. And now he was here, for his daughter. The comms activated without warning. A voice low and controlled filled the bridge of the Zorgon ship. "This is Admiral Johnson. You have my daughter. I'm here to collect. Resistance is inadvisable." It wasn't a threat. It was a guarantee. The bridge crew froze. No one moved. No one blinked, those who had eyelids anyway. Even the emergency evacuation drones quietly backed into the walls as if hoping to disappear. The commander, his gelatinous form sagging under the weight of inevitability, let out a long, wet sigh. "We're dead," one brave ensign stammered. "Sir, we could try apologizing, maybe offer compensation." But the commander was already shaking what passed for his head. He doesn't care about apologies. He doesn't care about credits. He came for one thing. The next moment, the first wave hit. A low-frequency pulse rocked their shielding systems. Not a shot fired, not a hull breach yet, but a warning blast, designed to announce his presence without causing immediate annihilation, like a predator growling before the kill. And then, the second comm burst. A video feed flickered on. Admiral Johnson's face filled the screen grizzled, cold-eyed, unreadable. The scars across his temple glinted under artificial light, and cybernetic implants buzzed softly as he leaned closer to the camera. "You're going to return, Sarah. Now. No negotiation, no delay." Just then, the camera panned slightly. Seated beside him in the cockpit was a woman in her mid-20s, casually sipping tea from a stainless steel mug. Sarah Johnson, alive, composed, calm. She gave the Zorgon crew a casual wave, her lips curled in an amused smile. The entire bridge fell into horrified silence. "She's already on board," one crew member whispered, voice full of dread. The commander stared at the screen in disbelief. "He boarded us while we were talking. While we stood here panicking, he extracted her and left us standing like fools." "Then what now, sir?" another asked. "We die," the commander muttered. At that exact moment, the first breach lit up the port side of the ship. Bright arcs of plasma tore through the hull like wet paper. The alarm screamed, but no one moved. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. As escape pods jettisoned in random directions, the commander took one final glance at the screen just in time to see Sarah Johnson set down her tea, lean into the camera, and give a wink. Then came the explosion. From a distance, it looked like a collapsing star, brief and violent. What was once a proud Zorgon battlecruiser became scattered debris spinning across the void. On board, "Don't tread on me." Admiral Johnson powered down his weapons and turned to his daughter. "You good?" Sarah nodded, already scrolling through a datapad. "They didn't even check my pockets." "Amateurs," he grunted. "Told you to stop getting kidnapped." "Technically, I wasn't kidnapped. I let them take me. Big difference." Johnson didn't argue. He just shook his head, muttering something about paperwork, and leaned back in the captain's chair. Out there, somewhere, the galaxy stirred in fear because they all knew Bloodbath Johnson had just warmed up. Back aboard the "Don't Tread on Me," the chaos had finally settled. Smoke still clung to the edges of the air filtration system, and the weapons were cooling from their brief but spectacular use. Admiral Johnson sat in the command chair, expression set somewhere between exhaustion and irritation. Across from him, seated with her feet up on a console, was the source of that exhaustion and pride. His daughter, Sarah Johnson. At 25, Sarah held a PhD in xenobiology, spoke 7 alien dialects fluently, and could disable most standard energy weapons in under 30 seconds. She also had a tendency to get herself into trouble that made entire civilizations lose sleep. Johnson rubbed the bridge of his nose and gave her a tired look. "We've talked about this," he began, voice heavy with the weight of 1,000 prior conversations. "About what?" Sarah asked innocently, taking a loud sip from a mug labeled Galaxy's #1 kidnap target. He sighed. "About getting yourself kidnapped." "I didn't get kidnapped, Dad. I let them take me. Huge difference." "That's not the point," he grumbled. "Do you have any idea how much red tape I have to slice through every time I obliterate an alien battleship?" Sarah grinned. "Sounds like a you problem." Johnson shot her a look that could have stopped a charging Zarnak beast in its tracks. "It becomes my problem when it involves my warship, my crew, and my reputation." "Your reputation," she scoffed. "Please, You're Admiral Bloodbath Johnson. People hear your name and hide under their furniture. And somehow you still keep finding new species dumb enough to abduct you, he replied, deadpan. Sarah leaned back, stretching her arms. To be fair, this time I didn't even try. I was just at a symposium, presenting my findings on interspecies digestive cross-reactions. Next thing I know, bam, tentacles, blindfold, and a very unprofessional ransom note. And you didn't call for backup? Dad, I'm not helpless. I disabled their security system with a hairpin, pocketed their ship codes, and hacked into their comms. Honestly, I was just waiting to see how long it'd take you to show up. 3 hours, Johnson said flatly. And in that time, I had to reroute our entire patrol course, burn through 3 emergency jump nodes, and threaten an interplanetary blockade. Sarah shrugged. You're fast. He glared at her, then gave a small, reluctant chuckle. You're impossible. I get that from Mom. Silence settled between them for a moment. Then Johnson leaned forward, folding his hands. Look, I know you're smart. Smarter than me in more ways than I'd like to admit. But you've got a target on your back, Sarah. You're not just my daughter. You're you, and that makes you dangerous to the kinds of people who think they can get the upper hand by using you. Sarah's smirk faded just a bit. I know, Dad. I don't care how strong or clever you are. All it takes is one time, one slip up. She nodded, quiet now. I'll be more careful. Johnson studied her for a moment, then gave a short nod. Good. Now finish your tea. We're heading to that nebula you wouldn't shut up about. The Glean Cloud whales are migrating or whatever. Sarah's eyes lit up. Really? You remembered? I remember everything, he muttered, standing up. Especially the chaos you drag in. As the Don't Tread on Me turned toward their next destination, father and daughter returned to their stations, one grizzled warrior constantly on edge, the other a brilliant storm in human form, still humming a pop song while reviewing alien anatomy charts. In the depths of space, where diplomacy often came second to destruction, Sarah Johnson remained the galaxy's favorite paradox, a scientist with a scalpel mind and a trouble magnet's charm. And with her father watching the stars, the universe had no idea what it would be dealing with next. The emergency chamber of the Galactic Council hadn't been this full in over a century. Every seat was taken crystalline elders, gelatinous senators, gaseous life forms floating in containment fields. Even the notoriously aloof Andromedan observers had shown up. Something rare had happened, and everyone knew it. Someone had made the mistake of crossing humans. Again. Gender. High Pontiff Clax of Zyron 9 hovered at the center of the room, his glittering structure vibrating with what might have been anxiety or indigestion. Esteemed colleagues, he began, his voice ringing like chimes in a thunderstorm. We must address the human problem. A groan rippled through the room. Not this again. They've destroyed yet another battleship Zorgon vessel 17s, Clax continued, gesturing toward a holo image of flaming wreckage drifting in space. Casualties, total, cause, abduction of a single human civilian. Response, the arrival of Admiral Bloodbath Johnson. That name sent an involuntary twitch through most of the gathered council. Yes, him, Clax said grimly. He vaporized the entire crew, breached their flagship in minutes, and retrieved his daughter, who was calmly sipping tea on the bridge, might I add, before leaving without a single casualty on the human side. Again. Agi. A chorus of nervous murmurs followed. One council member, a floating cluster of spores from the Valurian sector, shivered in its nutrient mist. This is unsustainable. Every time we make a move, they retaliate tenfold. They're squishy, they're erratic, but they're terrifying. Another voice chimed in. Perhaps we could impose sanctions, isolate their trade networks. Economic pressure has worked before. Clax let out a noise that was somewhere between laughter and a crystalline fracture. The last time we tried sanctions, they got drunk and accidentally discovered a faster-than-light shortcut through a supernova. They benefit from setbacks. They call them learning experiences. An elder from the Troll Consortium raised a writhing limb. Then perhaps war, a coalition strike force, a united front. The old ways. Silence fell like a dropped asteroid. You mean, attack Earth? A small, reedy voice asked from the back. Several representatives looked physically ill. We'd need every fleet from every sector, someone muttered. And even then, we'd probably lose. They'd probably build a theme park on our ruins, another added bitterly. A heated debate followed blame, fear, wild suggestions. One representative even floated the idea of detonating a quantum singularity near Sol just to make a point. It was dismissed as not subtle enough. And then, amidst the shouting and clashing sensory tones, a soft voice cut through the noise. Maybe we just try being nice. Every eye stalk, photoreceptor, and psychic sensor in the room turned toward the youngest member, present a fresh-faced Zeronian intern, barely crystallized, shifting uncomfortably under the scrutiny. Be nice, Klax repeated, incredulous. The intern nodded. I mean, have we ever tried just inviting them over for tea? Or saying thank you? Or asking for help instead of threatening them? Several members blinked figuratively, for those without eyelids. You're proposing friendship, one ancient hive diplomat rasped. Yes, the intern squeaked. What if the reason they keep reacting violently is because we keep starting things? Maybe if we stop treating them like a threat, they'll stop being one. An uncomfortable silence followed. Run, a slow, confused murmur. Heads turned, calculations ran. Someone tentatively said, "It's so simple, it might actually work." Insanity, a few muttered. Genius, others countered. Klax stood motionless for a long moment, then finally nodded. Very well. We'll begin diplomatic planning immediately. Tea, gifts, compliments, anything but more war. And just like that, the first steps of a historic shift were taken. Not with weapons, not with force, but with the most unexpected weapon of all. Courtesy. Courtesy. Nexus Prime had never seen anything like it. The neutral planet, known for its serene white spires and cautiously polite inhabitants, had been chosen as the host for an unprecedented event. The first ever Human Appreciation Day. The idea had come from a desperate Galactic Council brainstorming session after the last incident involving Admiral Johnson and his daughter. Surprisingly, the motion passed. Some supported it out of hope, others out of fear. Everyone, however, agreed on one thing: humans were too dangerous to ignore, so maybe flattery would work. The central plaza had been transformed for the occasion. Banners floated mid-air, displaying awkward translations like "thank you," "meatbags," and "we like humans. Please don't kill us." Representatives from dozens of species arrived with shaky smiles and hastily assembled gift baskets, unsure whether they were there for a celebration or an appeasant ritual. And then, fashionably late and accompanied by a trail of colorful, accidental engine bursts, the human warship Don't Tread on Me descended into the atmosphere. Its arrival made everyone flinch. Some ducked, a few ran. But no weapons were fired. Not yet. Admiral Johnson disembarked with his usual grim expression, cybernetic eye whirring, one hand always within reach of his sidearm. At his side, Sarah bounced down the ramp, all smiles and sarcasm, wearing a t-shirt that read, "I survived getting kidnapped again." The alien welcoming committee was frozen in place. Finally, a brave Blair Vaughn stepped forward, presenting a fruit basket the size of a hovercar. "Welcome, Admiral," it squeaked. "We come in peace. Very, very peaceful peace." Johnson eyed the gift, then the speaker. "Appreciate it," he said flatly. "Just checking none of this is explosive, right?" The Blair Vaughn laughed nervously. "Only with flavor." Sarah leaned over to her dad. "You ever think you'd see the day the Bloggin brought us snacks instead of doomsday weapons?" "Times change," he muttered. "But I'm still keeping my blaster handy. That punch bowl looks suspicious." Inside the reception dome, things got even stranger. The buffet table featured delicacies from every human culture, although the execution varied wildly. The Andromedan version of sushi still wiggled. The Von interpretation of hamburgers was gelatinous. A well-meaning species tried to serve tacos filled with shimmering stardust. Johnson quietly made a note to avoid the food entirely. Then came the entertainments. The Beatle-like choir from Jewel 4 performed an original musical number titled Ode to the Pink Meat Creatures Who Somehow Run Everything. The lyrics were questionable, the melody worse, but the effort admirable. Halfway through the gala, Sarah nudged her father. Is it just me, or are they actually trying to butter us up? Johnson scanned the crowd with a practiced eye. Seems like it. I'm not used to flattery. Usually, there's more plasma fire involved. To everyone's surprise, things didn't go wrong. In fact, something unexpected happened. People started talking. The Zeronian delegates brought rare crystal wines and laughed at human jokes. The Blogin normally terrifying acid-oozing horrors turned out to have a wicked sense of humor. Even the infamously unfriendly Korans joined a game of intergalactic charades with the human ambassadors. It was awkward, it was weird, and it was kind of fun. By the end of the night, Johnson found himself sitting across from High Pontiff Clax of Zyron 9, sipping what might have been whiskey or highly flammable coolant. This wasn't half bad, Johnson admitted, swirling the glowing liquid in his glass. We would be most pleased to host again, Clax replied, his crystalline form vibrating with relief. Perhaps next time, on Earth? Johnson raised an eyebrow. Fair warning, our gravity might shatter you. Clax actually chuckled. Then we'll bring reinforced limbs. As the evening came to a close and the Don't Tread on Me prepped for departure, a rare feeling spread through the assembly. Cautious optimism. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for a new era. Or, at the very least, fewer ships blown up. It started with a handshake, or what passed for one, when the person doing the shaking was a 6-foot-tall sentient gemstone named Sparkles. Officially, Sparkles was the first ever Zeronian intern to be stationed on a human vessel. Unofficially, he was a walking, talking diplomatic accident just waiting to happen. Sarah Johnson had named him Sparkles within 5 minutes of their first meeting, and despite the Admiral's very vocal objections, the name stuck. I wanted to study human culture firsthand, Sparkles had said, his crystalline body glowing softly with enthusiasm. What better way than aboard your flagship? Admiral Johnson had stared at him, deadpan. You do know we're not exactly the cultural ambassador type of ship, right? Sparkles nodded. Precisely. This way, I may witness humanity in its purest form. Oh boy, Johnson muttered. From the moment he stepped onto the Don't Tread on Me, Sparkles managed to cause minor chaos with terrifying consistency. His first lesson in human technology ended with him trying to eat a dilithium crystal. The ship's power grid went down for 6 hours, and Johnson had to issue a new regulation. If it glows, it's a no-go. Sparkles apologized profusely, of course. It looks so delicious, he said mournfully. He also screamed in 6 octaves when surprised, which unfortunately included almost everything on a human warship. Crew members quickly learned to brace themselves for sonic crystal-shattering shrieks whenever someone popped a soda can too loudly or sneezed near him. Then came the pirate incident. The crew had just entered Sector 7 when a gang of ruthless space pirates attempted to board the ship. Weapons systems came online. Security locked down, and Sparkles, in a blind panic, started shedding razor-sharp crystal shards while spinning in circles and shouting what he claimed was an ancient Zeronian battle chant. It sounded suspiciously like, "Oh my stars, we're all gonna die." The pirates, utterly confused and covered in minor lacerations, aborted the mission. Later reports described the human vessel as protected by a weaponized disco ball that screams. Johnson didn't even bother correcting them. Despite the chaos, Sparkles was a fast learner. He watched Sarah closely, took notes, and even tried telling jokes. One morning, he declared proudly, "I believe I now understand human humor." Observe. Why did the carbon-based life form cross the star field to reach the other spiral arm? Sarah gave him a pity laugh. That's Something, Sparkles. And I've been studying human sayings as well, he continued. For example, when angry, one must throw hands. But I have no hands. Would throw facets suffice? Let's not test that in combat, Johnson replied, sipping his coffee. To his credit, Sparkles was eager, optimistic, and endearingly clueless. He recorded every detail of human behavior with an almost academic fervor: why humans loved caffeine, why they cursed at inanimate objects, and why they insisted on calling every minor emergency a Tuesday. Slowly but surely, the crew warmed up to him. Even the Admiral, who had started off skeptical, began to tolerate Sparkles. Sort of. Just don't eat anything that powers the ship, he warned one day, and try not to scream every time someone flushes the lav. Understood, Admiral, Sparkles said with a proud twinkle. Though the sound of rushing water still startles me. As for Sarah, she treated Sparkles like a chaotic little brother. She showed him movies, taught him how to make pancakes, a process involving 4 small fires and 1 minor chemical spill, and explained the difference between sarcasm and sincerity, though not always clearly. By the end of his first month, Sparkles had broken 3 consoles, reprogrammed the coffee machine to speak Zeronian, and started a shipwide debate about whether humans or beetle people made better karaoke partners. And somehow, the ship was never quite the same without him. Sure, he was a liability with legs, but Sparkles reminded them all, especially the battle-hardened Admiral and his brilliant daughter, that diplomacy wasn't always about precision. Sometimes it was about laughter, confusion, and trying to understand someone so different they made you question everything you thought you knew. And in that way, the galaxy's first crystal intern turned out to be one of humanity's most unexpected ambassadors. It started like any other quiet morning aboard the Don't Tread on Me. Sarah was in the galley, battling a stubborn bag of pancake mix, while Sparkles was enthusiastically attempting to juggle frying pans badly. Admiral Johnson sat in the command chair, nursing a mug of steaming coffee and reviewing overnight intel. Then something caught his cybernetic eye. He squinted at the data, frowned, and zoomed in. "Huh," he muttered. Sarah looked up, flour dusted across her sleeves. "What's up, Dad?" Johnson tapped the screen, chatters picking up. Heavy encryption, lots of factions. "And they're all talking about us. Us, as in humanity?" she asked, already moving toward the bridge. "Us, as in this ship," he said flatly. "Looks like someone's planning a party." That party showed up 20 minutes later. The ship's AI, affectionately known as Karen, short for Kinetic Action Response Emulator Network, chimed in over the speakers, her synthetic voice dripping with attitude. "Excuse me, meatbags and sparkly sidekick. We've got incoming. And by incoming, I mean a fleet large enough to blot out a small sun." Alarms lit up. The display filled with hostile contacts, Zorgons, kayaks, Quarrens, even a few long-forgotten factions who must have dug themselves out of retirement just to join in. Every species that had ever held a grudge against humanity had apparently decided today was the day. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "That's a lot of ships." Sparkles, still wearing a chef's apron, chimed in cheerfully. "Perhaps they are throwing us a surprise celebration." The Admiral didn't even blink. "Yeah, kid, a surprise party, with ion cannons." As the crew jumped into action, the enemy fleet broadcast a message. A voice crackled through the comms, deep, gravelly, and clearly trying too hard to sound menacing. "Humans, your time of galactic dominance is at an end. Surrender now and we may show mercy. Resist." And the rest of the message was cut off abruptly as Sparkles, eager to help, tripped and fell onto the communications panel. The resulting static feedback loop fried several enemy receivers and caused a few ships to collide in the confusion. Bright explosions dotted the black sky like fireworks gone terribly wrong. Sarah turned slowly to look at the intern. "Did you just accidentally launch a counterattack?" Sparkles blinked. "I believe so. Was that bad?" Admiral Johnson chuckled. "Kid, that might have been the most effective tactical maneuver I've seen all year." Karen's voice returned. Well, I was going to suggest negotiating, but if we're starting with chaos, I'll cue up the dramatic music. Patch me through, Johnson ordered. The comms flared back to life, this time with Johnson front and center on every enemy screen. "This is Admiral Bloodbath Johnson of Earth," he said, voice calm and sharp as a knife. "I see you've all gathered to throw us a little get-together. That's touching, really." He leaned closer. "But here's the deal. If you think this fleet is enough to take us down, you're more delusional than the kayaks were at Reel 4. You remember that one, right? Spoiler alert, they didn't make it." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle like a storm cloud. "So here's your one chance. Turn around. Go home. We'll pretend this never happened, or stay, and learn why they call me Bloodbath. Your choice." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then slowly at first, then all at once, ships began to veer away, lights dimmed. Engines flared. Hyperspace jumps blinked out one by one. Within minutes, the mighty armada had unraveled into full retreat, leaving nothing but silence behind. Sarah stared in awe. "You just talked them into leaving?" The Admiral sipped his coffee, not bluffing if you mean it. Sparkles blinked. "So, the party is canceled?" "Afraid so," Sarah said with a grin. "But hey, not a single shot fired. That's a record for us." And as the "Don't Tread on Me" turned back toward its course, the galaxy learned a new truth. When it came to humanity, sometimes the legend was scarier than the war. The battle that never was, later dubbed the Great Non-Battle of Sector 9, spread across the galaxy faster than Aurelian flew at a zero-gravity rave. Within hours, every communication channel, holo newsfeed, and back alley rumor mill was buzzing with the same headline. Admiral Johnson faced down an armada and didn't fire a single shot. It became an instant legend. On Zordon Prime, the High Council drafted an official apology letter so groveling it came with a fruit basket large enough to affect nearby orbit. The Kayaks Empire, now a shadow of its former self thanks to Johnson's previous exploits, began selling novelty t-shirts that read, "I survived a Johnson standoff they sold out in under an hour." And in the dive bars of the galaxy, a new drinking game was born. Take a shot every time someone says bloodbath. Medical centers quickly issued warnings about alcohol poisoning. Back aboard the "Don't Tread on Me," life returned to its usual barely contained chaos. Sarah had finally taught Sparkles how to make a halfway decent pancake, though the ship's fire suppression system still activated every third attempt, just to be safe. The crew, though battle-hardened, was in strangely high spirits. After all, how often did you stare down certain destruction and come out the other side with no damage and a reputation boost? Admiral Johnson, on the other hand, was not thrilled. He sat in his quarters, glaring at the overflowing inbox on his datapad. "Karen," he grumbled, "what the hell is all this?" The AI's voice echoed through the room, drenched in smug amusement. "Fan mail, Admiral. You're officially a galactic celebrity. Congratulations, you're trending across 6 star systems and 2 parallel dimensions." Johnson groaned. "Fantastic. I intimidate an armada into turning tail, and now I have to send thank you notes." Sarah poked her head into the room, grinning like a kid on Spacemas morning. "Oh, come on, Dad. It's not that bad. Look, some Andromedan art collective wants to name a nebula after you." "Oh, good," he muttered. "Nothing says peaceful civilization like naming a cloud of exploding gas after a war criminal." Sparkles chimed in enthusiastically, his crystalline form sparkling like a disco ball. "I could assist with responses, Admiral. I've been studying human communication. For example, 'Dear admirer, may your enemies crumble before your glorious boots, and may your name echo through eternity.' How was that?" There was a long pause. Sarah clapped him on the shoulder carefully. "Will?" Out in the galaxy, the ripples kept spreading. Alien tourism to Earth skyrocketed. Tentacled creatures tried surfing in California. Amphibious species wandered New York trying to understand why humans voluntarily ate something called street meat. A group of blogging tourists, accidentally dissolved half of Space Mountain at Disney World with their excitement. The humans, unfazed, rebranded the ride as the Acid Trip Experience and doubled the ticket price. Back on the ship, Johnson found himself in a new and bizarre role, peacekeeper. During a heated negotiation between two rival factions in the Crab Nebula, he stood up, cracked his neck, and said, "Figure it out. Or I introduce you both to something called seafood boil." The treaty was signed within minutes. But not everyone welcomed this new wave of human popularity. In the darker corners of the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Old enemies stirred. Resentment brewed. Some species remembered a time when humans were just another curious primate species from a small blue planet before they'd become the force to reckon with. Plans were hatched. Alliances were formed. And somewhere, far from the light of peace talks and goodwill tours, a shadowy coalition began preparing for the unthinkable. Because not everyone saw humanity's success as admirable. Some saw it as a mistake. But for now, as the Don't Tread on Me sailed through the stars with its usual trail of confused allies, terrified enemies, and fan art from across the galaxy, one thing was clear. The universe wasn't just fascinated by humanity, it was obsessed. Admiral Johnson had faced ambushes, mutinies, and the occasional attempted coup by sentient mold, but nothing quite prepared him for the words that came through the transmission from Earth High Command. "You've been selected for a diplomatic goodwill tour." There was a long silence on the bridge of the Don't Tread on Me. Sarah slowly turned in her chair. "Diplomatic? Us?" Karen, the ship's AI, snorted through the comms. Oh, joy. A galactic road trip with the most dysfunctional family in known space. Johnson stared at the blinking message on his screen like it might bite him. "They want us to be the face of humanity." Sparkles beamed. "I shall prepare a welcome speech in 34 languages." Sarah leaned back with a smirk. "Come on, Dad. You told an entire fleet to turn around, and they actually did. That qualifies you as diplomatic now, apparently." "I threatened to boil them alive," Johnson muttered. "Exactly. Diplomacy, Earth-style." So, despite every instinct telling him to run in the opposite direction, Admiral Johnson gave the order, "Prep the ship. We're going on tour." Their first stop, Zircon 9, the crystalline homeworld of Sparkles. As the Don't Tread on Me entered orbit, Sparkles vibrated with excitement. It is customary to greet our High Pontiff by gently tapping foreheads. Johnson grunted. "You realize I'm not made of quartz, right? Consider it a gesture of trust." Minutes later, Johnson stood before the High Pontiff, stared at the glittering alien's angular face, and leaned forward. Clonk, claw. The sound echoed through the crystal city. The Admiral stumbled back, muttering a very human curse as a crack spread across his forehead. Karen chimed in over the comms. "Congratulations. We've been on planet for 2.7 minutes, and you've already headbutted their head of state. New record." Surprisingly, the Zeronians found it hilarious. Word spread instantly, and by midday, pulling a Johnson had become slang for any well-intentioned but catastrophic cultural misunderstanding. From there, things only got weirder. On Nebulos, a gas giant, Sarah accidentally accepted a bouquet of sentient plasma clouds, an action which, apparently, constituted a royal engagement. The Crown Prince of Vaporia proposed on the spot. The situation was only diffused when Sparkles, in a full-blown panic, ate the bouquet. "I didn't know what else to do," he said. Also, it was delicious. During their visit to the hive mind collective of Busan Beta, Johnson made an offhand joke about humans reproducing through mitosis. The Busan took it as gospel. For 2 weeks, alien citizens attempted to split themselves in half to make friends, but nothing topped Quor. There, Sarah hosted a movie night to share human culture. She chose Jaws. The aquatic species, whose physiology bore an uncomfortable resemblance to the film's antagonist, believed it was a documentary. Widespread panic erupted. Fish-like citizens fled to mountaintops. The government nearly collapsed. To fix things, Admiral Johnson did what no human had ever done before. He challenged the Koran champion to a shark wrestling contest in a shallow pool. Without sharks, Johnson splashed around while growling and flailing, and somehow won. The Korans erupted in celebration. The admiral was declared Shark Tamer of Earth and awarded a ceremonial headdress shaped like an apex predator. Back on the ship, Sarah couldn't stop laughing. We might be the worst diplomats in the galaxy. Johnson adjusted his absurd new headdress. Yeah, but we're the most entertaining. Sparkles, eyes wide, nodded solemnly. I now understand. Human diplomacy is not about perfection. It is about resilience, improvisation, turning disaster into legend. Karen chimed in, dry as ever. Or you're just lucky idiots. Whatever the truth was, it worked. With each stop, the tour grew more chaotic, and oddly, more successful. They weren't smoothing relations, they were rewriting the rules. And the galaxy, despite itself, couldn't look away. The "Don't Tread on Me" soared through the stars like a spacefaring wrecking ball wearing a peace badge. What had started as a diplomatic goodwill tour had rapidly evolved into something the galaxy had no word for: part disaster, part miracle, part interstellar reality show. And somehow, against every known law of politics and physics, it was working. At each stop, the humans brought confusion, minor property damage, and cultural misunderstandings that would take years to untangle. But they also brought honesty, laughter, something no delegation had ever delivered before: authenticity. The galaxy didn't know what to do with that. On Gorgon 5, a swamp-covered world known for its volatile methane atmosphere and extremely flammable politics, Johnson had one simple request for his crew before landing: try not to start a chemical war. Sarah had nodded seriously. Got it. No spark-based humor. Sparkles had raised one glittering hand. I have removed all flammable objects from my person. Karen, their AI, snorted over the intercom. What about your personality, Sparkles? The ship touched down with its usual lack of subtlety, blasting a ceremonial fountain off its foundations in the process. The Gorgoni delegation responded with polite applause. Apparently, unintentional explosions were considered a warm welcome in their culture. A win, by Johnson's standards. But it wasn't just about awkward meet and greets anymore. Something was shifting across the stars. The more the humans showed up and messed up, the more the galaxy leaned in, curious, fascinated, unsettled. There were arguments in alien universities about the human paradox, a species capable of great compassion and catastrophic collateral damage, often at the same time. Back on board, Sparkles was thriving. He was now an unofficial cultural liaison, official pancake tester, and newly minted author of a popular holo series, Diplomacy by Accident: My Life with the Johnsons. He proudly shared his theories with the crew over breakfast one morning. I have concluded that humans possess a unique gift, he said. An ability to improvise catastrophically, then somehow convince everyone it was the plan all along. Not wrong, Karen muttered. Sarah grinned, flipping a pancake. We call it winging it. Works about 80% of the time. Johnson just sipped his coffee. That's being generous. Word of the tour's bizarre success spread. More planets requested visits. Invitations poured in from mining colonies, high councils, even a group of reclusive gas-based philosophers who wanted to study the species that made chaos an art form. The tour was reshaping galactic diplomacy, one crash landing at a time. Aliens began adopting human customs. A group of beetle-like officials started wearing Hawaiian shirts to negotiations. A star system in the Outer Rim established a national holiday called Oh No! It's the Humans Again Day, complete with themed fireworks and emergency drills. Of course, not everyone found the humans charming. In shadowy corners of the galaxy, resentment brewed. Old enemies whispered, they're spreading like a virus. They're rewriting the rules. Coalitions formed in secret. Plans were made. But the humans, oblivious. One night, as the ship glided silently through a nebula lit by glowing space plankton, Johnson stood at the viewport, hands folded behind his back. Sarah joined him, quietly sipping hot cocoa. "You ever think we'd be doing this?" she asked. "Peace talks, dance festivals, alien comedy shows." He gave a small grunt. "Not exactly what I trained for." She smiled. "You're good at it." "I'm good at threatening people with orbital bombardment." "Slightly different skill set. Same energy," she teased. Behind them, Sparkles practiced his new stand-up routine on an uninterested maintenance droid. Johnson shook his head, faintly amused. "We're rewriting the book on diplomacy." Sarah bumped his shoulder. "No, Dad, we're setting it on fire and doodling in the ashes." He didn't argue. As the "Don't Tread on Me" sailed toward its next questionable stop, the galaxy watched equal parts horrified and enchanted. Because everyone knew the truth by now. Wherever humans go, nothing stays the same. And maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. The transformation of Sparkles from awkward intern to reluctant galactic legend happened faster than anyone expected, though. In fairness, no one had expected a sentient gemstone to become the accidental poster child for interspecies diplomacy. It started during a pirate ambush in Sector 7. The "Don't Tread on Me" was running a standard route when a group of battle-hardened space pirates tried to board the ship, expecting frightened diplomats and soft targets. What they found instead was Sparkles panicked, screaming, and shedding razor-sharp crystal shards in every direction while spinning in circles and chanting what sounded like, "Oh stars, oh stars, we're all going to die." The pirates fled in confusion, bleeding and dazed. "They've weaponized a disco ball," one terrified raider later reported. The story went viral within hours. From there, Sparkles' legend snowballed. He wasn't just a sparkling intern anymore. He was now known across the quadrant as the Screaming Crystal of Sector 7, with fan art, commemorative mugs, and even a holo movie in the works. Sarah thought it was hilarious. Admiral Johnson just sighed and muttered something about needing a vacation. Sparkles took it all in stride, eager to do his job, even when he didn't always understand it. In one memorable incident, he mistook a batch of glowing dilithium crystals in the engine room for candy and tried to eat one. The resulting near meltdown prompted the Admiral to institute a new ship-wide policy. If it glows, it's a no-go. Still, Sparkles was determined to be helpful. He studied human culture with obsessive dedication, often quoting things wildly out of context. "I believe I have mastered human humor," he once declared confidently. "Observe, why did the carbon-based life form cross the vacuum? To get to the other spiral arm." Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. "We'll keep working on timing." But Sparkles' charm wasn't in his accuracy. It was in his sincerity. He asked questions no one else would ask. He complimented things humans didn't think twice about, like the sound of laughter or the chaos of morning briefings. He treated human quirks with wonder, not judgment. And that, somehow, made him a bridge no diplomat ever could have built. Even Admiral Johnson, initially skeptical of the intern's presence, began to soften. Sort of. "Just don't touch anything that looks like it could explode," he muttered one day. Sparkles saluted enthusiastically. "Understood. I will only touch non-explosive anomalies." "That's not." "Never mind," Johnson said, rubbing his temples. The galaxy, meanwhile, couldn't get enough. Aliens began requesting Sparkles at diplomatic events. Entire delegations showed up not to see the Admiral or his famously fiery daughter, but the nervous gemstone who once made pirates retreat by shrieking in panic. Merchants sold sparkle-shaped stress toys. One eccentric fashion brand even released a line of shimmering Zeronian panic couture. Back aboard the ship, Sparkles remained humble. "I do not understand why they find me so fascinating," he admitted to Sarah during a late-night stroll through the observation deck. She smiled. "It's because you're real, Sparkles. You don't try to be perfect. You just show up, do your best, and somehow survive." Is that human diplomacy in a nutshell? Karen's voice cut in over the intercom. Also, the bar is extremely low. And so, the legend of Sparkles grew not because he was fearless, but because he wasn't. He showed that you didn't have to be a war hero or a master negotiator to change the galaxy. Sometimes, being honest, terrified, and weirdly shiny was enough. As the Don't Tread on Me warped toward its next diplomatic disaster in waiting, Sparkles adjusted his intern badge proudly. "Do you think I'm ready for my first solo mission?" he asked. Johnson grunted. "You survived pancakes, pirates, and plasma. Sure. Just try not to start a war. I shall do my sparkliest." Sarah grinned, slapping him gently on the back. "That's our boy." And just like that, the most unlikely ambassador in the galaxy stepped into his role not as a warrior or politician, but as something even more rare, a friend. By the time Sparkles appeared on his third interstellar talk show, nervously twinkling under studio lights and fumbling over his top 10 human phrases, it was clear the galaxy had developed a full-blown obsession. He'd gone from anxious intern to accidental icon. The once unknown Zeronian had become a universal household name featured on cereal boxes in the Nebulae Belt, idolized in Koran art, and even declared a national treasure by the United Council of Juvenile Diplomats. All because he panicked during a pirate raid and sparkled a little too hard. No one was more baffled by his newfound stardom than Sparkles himself. "I do not understand," he told Sarah one evening, pacing around the bridge. "I have broken 2 doors, crashed the ship's coffee machine, and screamed during every emergency alert. Why am I considered admirable?" Sarah laughed, kicking her boots up on the console. "Because you're genuine, Sparkles. You don't pretend to be something you're not. That's rare out here." Karen, the ship's AI, chimed in with her usual dry sarcasm. Or maybe the galaxy just loves a walking disco ball with anxiety. Either way, peer departments are drooling. Meanwhile, Earth's high command was starting to see the chaos in a new light. What began as a desperate attempt to repair Earth's reputation was now reshaping intergalactic relations. With each stop on the tour, the Don't Tread on Me left behind confusion, laughter, minor structural damage, and improved diplomatic ties. Sparkle's accidental celebrity helped smooth tensions better than 100 polished envoys ever could. Alien species were warming up to humanity, not through fear, but through absurdity. A delegation of Andromedans sent friendship bracelets made of glowing tendrils. The Thalaxian Broadcasting Network launched a drama series based on the crew's adventures, though they took creative liberties like portraying Admiral Johnson as a musical genius and Sparkles as a half-dragon prince. Johnson didn't know whether to be flattered or file a cease and desist. Even galactic fashion had changed. Sparkle Score, a trend defined by asymmetrical glowing outfits and panic chick accessories, had taken over interplanetary runways. But with popularity came scrutiny. In the darker corners of the galaxy, old rivals whispered. Factions who had once dismissed humanity as a backwater species now saw their influence threatened by this glittering wave of goodwill. And they hated it. They're turning chaos into strategy, one disgruntled ambassador spat during a closed council meeting. They trip over their own feet and land in alliances. "There must be a weakness," another hissed. "We just haven't found it yet." Back aboard, the Don't Tread on Me, Sparkles remained blissfully unaware of the mounting political drama he'd unintentionally ignited. He was too busy preparing for what Sarah called the next step in ambassador training karaoke night. "I have chosen a human melody," he announced. "It is called Livin' on a Prayer. I believe it reflects the existential tension of my daily life." "You're gonna crush it," Sarah assured him, handing over a mic. "I hope not," Sparkles said, confused. As the music blared through the ship, Johnson leaned back in his chair, sipping something dangerously close to engine coolant and watching his daughter and intern sing badly but enthusiastically under neon lights. He never imagined his legacy would involve diplomatic karaoke. But somehow this made more sense than anything else. Because what the galaxy didn't realize, what they couldn't yet understand, was that Sparkles and the crew weren't just anomalies. They were a preview, a glimpse into a new kind of diplomacy, unfiltered, unpredictable, and entirely human. And it was working. Somewhere out there, fleets still gathered, alliances still schemed, and dark forces still plotted. But for now, peace held. Not because of treaties or threats, but because a nervous intern with too much shine had made the galaxy laugh. Maybe that was the point. Maybe in a universe used to war and protocol, all it took was a little chaos and sincerity to change everything. And Sparkles, humble, anxious, overly literal Sparkles was leading the charge.